Welcome to the Bleeding Edge Report with Chris and Treg, where tech meets its match. Welcome to the second part of episode 7, part 2, with Dirk Wolter. Enjoy.
So networks are not exhaustive small ones. There's spare capacity in the network, and that spare capacity can now be made available. You could think of that similar to a last-minute booking of an airline. So the flight leaves, and if you have only half of your seats sold, you might think it's better to sell the remaining seats at a discount, because if you don't, that asset is gone, right?
Yeah, the yield. Yeah.
So FWA basically offers the opportunity for operators to monetize the spare capacity they have in the network, and that, at least for now, for 5G networks, there's a lot of spare capacity available. It is a little different operator by operator. So depending on how much radio spectrum they have available, the radio spectrum is the ultimate technical limitation of a mobile network. But with 5G, most operators double the amount of spectrum available. Right? In the US, we had not only the C-auction, the C-band auction, which was super expensive, by the way, the most expensive in the world. But you had before that millimeter wave auctions. The US is leading in millimeter wave, and that provides vast capacity. So millimeter wave capacity allows FWA to be economically offered to subscribers, and that's what we see in the US. So FWA in the US is leading. We see other markets, basically markets that are geographically challenging. All of them use FWA here.
So how many years do you think it will be for in the States anyway that we'll be seeing FWA deployed?
The FWA is deployed in the US. So when you look at Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all of them have FWA subscriptions on 5G.
Okay.
Verizon is heavily leveraging their millimeter wave spectrum, and I think Verizon may be a little ahead, and AT&T and T-Mobile do the same. So FWA is available. What has changed a little bit is I see how FWA is being marketed. By the way, not only in the US, but also in other developed markets. So we spoke about FWA being the alternative for a fixed line. So if there's no fixed service available, we use FWA because that is the only choice.
Right.
But we see interesting developments today. So operators are not just offering to that segment, meaning connecting the unconnected, but we see FWA also today as a potential way to compete with fixed lines. Let's say if you have a very bad fixed line, you have DSL at home. Many subscribers still have DSL, some form of DSL.
Oh, sure they do. Oh, yeah.
Then there could be a situation where FWA is much faster for the same price.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you. So, Dirk, thank you for connecting all the dots there. I'll tell you what's going on in the U.S. since you haven't been here recently, but how it's being marketed is. You're exactly right. They're going head to head with some of these fixed line solutions to bring people up to the next evolution of technology, and they're bundling it with your carrier subscription. So, for example, Verizon, they'll put in the old days we call it a femto cell, right? But it's basically a box that sits in your living room and it connects everything in the house, right? And it's cellular. Ultimately, it's a 5G connection is kind of what's going on. So people think of it as a very simple appliance to use. It's just a big phone essentially that's on a hotspot is kind of what's going on there. But how they're doing contractually in marketing is they're bundling it with your mobile phone on extended contracts at a very reasonable price in order to usurp the old cable business, as an example.
Yeah, I studied that Verizon solution for a recent consulting project. So
I see
what I see in the US. So there are actually 3 market segments. So the operators are looking at 3 market segments. The first one is the traditional one, FWA for households that have no fixed connection, and wireless is the only way to go. The new market segment, there are 2 new ones. The second that we see is for connections that are poor in quality, like DSL lines that perhaps deliver only 10 megabit per second.
Yes.
FWA by means of 5G delivers 5G speeds and like fiber speeds.
Right.
So basically, in areas where there's no fiber, suddenly by FWA, subscribers can have 1 gigabit per second speeds, and
Yes.
are willing to pay for it, often a premium. That's the second segment. Basically,
Mhm.
replacing poor fixed infrastructure with better performing 5G internet into households. And then there's a third segment, which is emerging, interesting too. Even households that do have a good internet connection, for example, based on DOCSIS, they have maybe 100
Yes.
cable, 100 megabit cable.
Yeah.
They say, wait a moment, I pay $80 or $90 for a cable connection, and I get a wireless connection, FWA, that offers the same or higher speed and is cheaper. So that third segment are people that already have some fixed connection and it's maybe good enough, but they figure that FWA is cheaper. So by means of 5G, we are now moving from that single segment, connecting the unconnected, and adding the other two that I mentioned, and that gives a much broader customer base. So you could say that with the 5G, we see FWA as a mass adoption, whereas in 4G, it was more a niche market.
So
Fantastic.
That's very enlightening, by the way. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about a situation in the United States. And so in the United States, in 2008, they passed a law or a bill that basically said all the hospitals and all the medical groups had to go on electronic medical records, or EHRs, electronic health records, and it's been just a shambles, put it that way. But what it made it do was, you're looking at all these images. Now all these images have to be accessed across everything, and so the amount of data and the databases that they're having to pipe through is huge. And there was a lot of it when it first came out was all server-based, on-site server-based applications. And now they're trying to move it towards more of a software as a service model. That's been going on for about 4 or 5 years. But then now what they're running into is just the speed. So now if the people are walking around with all these tablets and everything else, and they're trying to pipe, speed back back on site through one pipeline, now they're having problems. And so this right here, what you're talking about in 5G, if you have this fixed wireless access system, at least in that industry, I think there's some hope there in that hospitals, medical groups, all these different organizations all around the United States that are having this issue now might be able to go to a true software as a service model on a mobile side and provide a little bit about what they promised they were going to try and get back in 2008. So this could be very interesting. That's very enlightening. So
yeah. You're talking about the US market. What I find interesting is that so Chris is a little impatient. He says, "Oh, when is the real 5G coming?" Maybe I should comfort you here a little bit. So if you look around the world, where does 5G stand? Now, as a global average, we can say today that about 12% of all mobile subscriptions are 5G. 12%. That's the global average. But that's very different region by region. In the US, you're very far ahead. So in the US, you're approaching the 40%, right? So you're already above 30%. The leading markets for 5G is the US, it is China, and it is North Asia, right. Japan and Korea. So here you have already more than 30% adoption of 5G, or approaching the 40% level. The average, again, globally is just 12%. And I'm from Germany, so I wish 5G in Germany was as present as it is in the US. In Europe, we are at around 11% only. We are just the average, right?
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm surprised too. And so my girlfriend, she's actually from China. And so I told Chris that story. Yeah. So we went on a highway in Germany. It's the A9. It's one of the biggest highways. It connects Munich to Berlin. And she was playing with her phone. And she said, "Oh, my phone is broken." I said, what's wrong with your phone? Oh, it doesn't work. I said, well, it's not the phone. There is no network. And then she answered, oh, you mean there's no 5G? I said, no, I mean, there's no G. There's no G at all. And she's from China. Right?
That's unheard of for a Chinese,
the
right?
idea that there
Oh,
is no cellular network on a highway like this
man.
was unthinkable for her, right? But in
Right.
Germany, we have that situation because there are reasons for this. Unfortunately, our regulator has taken very unfavorable decisions. So when the 5G spectrum came out, the auctions were late and then they were very expensive. So the network build out in Germany is relatively slow, and in Europe in general, we are at 11%. I mean, there are other places, right? When you look at Africa, some parts of emerging Asia, we are at 1% 5G, but I don't want to compare Germany to that.
Right.
Now, the US has done some great things, and I think there are some learnings. So the US, when it came to 4G, was behind. And the reason was that we discussed earlier. Unfortunately, our market was divided. So we had different engineers believing in different technologies, and you mentioned some of them. Well, the US had CDMA, EVDO. There was an own 4G version of that called Ultra Mobile Broadband. Then there was WiMAX, and some of the operators had deployed GSM. So you had a very partitioned market, and it's only with 4G that everyone moved to 4G, and then 5G, there was no doubt about it. Everyone has the same 5G today. So that's
right.
The US forward. Also, when we look at millimeter wave, I mean, the only commercial market that I can think of with such high millimeter wave deployment is the US. So your regulator issued 5G millimeter wave spectrum many years ago, and actually before C-band, which is quite unusual. And most other markets we have C-band first and then millimeter wave. So clearly the US is ahead for other reasons too, by the way. So your subscribers in the US pay a lot more than others pay.
I was going to mention the billing system seems to be working.
Your market is I would say less competitive. Yeah, you have the AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, and then that's anyone else. So
that's right.
Subscribers in the US pay about $50. Also, that I want to give you a global average. So the global average for the ARPU is about $8, right? Global average.
Oh yeah.
In the US, you're at 50.
Oh, I've been out of touch for a little while here.
Well, Treg, you never went to India.
And to the credit of my German or European fellows in Europe, the ARPU is in the range of $25. So it's half of what it is in the US. That also explains why operators are perhaps a little less keen on building out 5G so fast, because 5G is CapEx intense, and well, there's this chicken and egg problem. Where are the revenues?
Yeah.
And you have to have certainty on the revenues before you spend the CapEx. Yeah.
Well, Dirk, thank you
That's
so
great.
much for all your insights. This has been a fantastic session. Probably our best episodes. So I love that we ended it on the billing system being so good in the United States. It always is, always fantastic on the amount of ARPU here. But I just want to sum up before we close a few of the key points that I collected from our discussion today. One is that we should remain optimistic that, the capabilities of 5G, even if you can't tell the difference between your 4G experience and your 5G today, 5G solutions that make a big difference are already here. And we talked in extensive detail about the mobile wireless access for folks who are otherwise don't have any access at all with these 5G connections, and the power that is going to enable even faster networks, more reliable networks, and more capable networks that things like automated cars and IoT needs is underway. The investments are going on today. So I'm actually more optimistic than I was before this call on talking about this. And then finally, the last thing was that if you are a small, medium business or even a large enterprise IT decision maker who are thinking about allocating resources to drive more productivity because that's what's in vogue these days, you can do that, right? A lot of the applications that you're going to be using are already enabled with the throughput that you need. The solutions are available. I would just recommend you to reach out to your telco provider and talk to them about it, because maybe they just haven't done a good job getting that message out to you because things are so new. So
Yeah.
that's my summary. Treg, did you have anything else to add before we turn Dirk loose?
The only thing, the big thing that I walk away from this is I think this needs to be realized a little bit more. So the United States, on the world economy is kind of distracted, I think, some companies from their product innovation a little bit, and a lot of their investment too. And I think the thing that this does to our clients, or, the medium-sized enterprise, large companies, is that some of the stuff, the fixed wireless access, just that capability alone can open up a lot of new features for their existing applications and capabilities to make them more competitive. So they need to take another look at this down and see where it's going to hit and start developing for it a little bit more, because it kind of seems like with this much bandwidth, because it's always been a game of bandwidth since day one with data. So, but with this much bandwidth, on a fixed wireless access basis, I think the game is going to change in terms of the features and capabilities a lot of these applications can provide. So, and when it comes out, it could change pretty rapid. It's kind of reminds me of taking pictures on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
It took a while. The resolution wasn't very good. People didn't really like it. And then all it just took was a good camera and some bandwidth. And next thing you know, now it's just video and photos all over the place. And that happened very quick. I think there's a lot of things that could change with the addition of this nice fixed wireless access and mobile access like this. So that's what I walk away with.
Yeah. Dirk,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time this morning, coming in from Singapore to talk to us about the 5G network. And hey, good luck with the 6G network. Right, we're looking forward to
that. Or 7G or 8G.
But we didn't talk about before 6G. So we talked about public 5G networks, and maybe a topic for another call are private 5G networks. We see this emerging. So in Germany, for example, we have more than hundreds of them. So all the car manufacturers, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, also Lufthansa, they have their private 5G network meanwhile. And that reminds us that 5G, the original idea was not so much the consumer to make our smartphones faster, but it is industrial automation. Vertical and industrial use cases is at the very center of what 5G should deliver.
You're right.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. Please like and subscribe our video today if you liked it. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next call. Thanks again, Dirk, for all your contributions today. Fantastic job. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.